Welcome to the pocket. Am I too excited for you, Spencer?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Well, lacrosse podcast brought to you by Stephy Samaras and Spencer Ford. Let's first probably introduce ourselves. Introduce yourself, Spencer.
Hi, I'm Spencer Ford. I am the boys director here at the St. James for lacrosse. Started just about a month and a half ago, so excited to be here.
Yeah, Stephy Samaras. I'm the director of lacrosse here. Been here for 2 years. Probably one of the best experiences in my life has been working for the St. James. And we're going to talk a lot about the St. James, and we're going to talk a lot about lacrosse. We name this the pocket because it's the sweet spot, and we're going to talk about players. We're going to talk about development. We're going to talk about what we're doing with the St. James Academy, and sort of diving into that world specifically of development, lacrosse, high school, academics, all that sort of fun stuff. So, Spencer, why don't you sort of give everybody a whole background of you, because we're a little bit different in the lacrosse world. We've spanned decades, both as players, coaches, GM. I've coached internationally. So why don't we sort of just give me a quick background on like you and where you've been and what you've done. Who you've produced.
It's been, I guess I've been involved in lacrosse since I was 4. So it's been about 45 years now that I've been in the game. So certainly aging myself, not purposely.
I cover up my gray.
But I have done everything from, obviously the youth club all the way through the pro game as both a player and a GM. There are so many players that I've been around from the time that they were, obviously little till, they made it to the pro league. So I think that's one of the greatest things about my career, outside of being a player, is to see a kid that you coach in the youth game, Jake Caraway, that, you then get to watch him play in high school, and then you get to watch him play in college, and then he goes to the pros. Like, that's just a really good feeling to know that you had, a little bit of a
sprinkle.
Just something to give him that maybe he took a bit or this or that, and we're still close to this day. But yeah, it's been a long time, and it's been a lot of different routes in my journey.
Yeah, so my journey is a little different from the pro aspect, but first career, I like to call it, as a college coach. I love Yale is where I started under Mandy O'Leary, the current Florida coach. I know both Yale and Florida have made the quarterfinals for lacrosse. And then I went to a small little division school called Quinnipiac. Nobody knows how to pronounce it, but I love me some Quinnipiac Bobcats. Ended my coaching career at Richmond. In between that, I was an international coach. So I've done a lot internationally. But playing-wise, I think same thing with you, and coaching-wise, I got to play against the best, in my opinion. I'm going to always give you my biases, which is that the right word? Biases? Biases? Bias? I'm going to give you my bias.
Your bias, yeah.
My bias. I think my sister is the best player in the world, Krista Samaras. But
she was okay.
She was totally okay. God, just imagine if we were allowed to follow through into the crease back then, but that's for a different podcast. And, Jen Adams, now you get to see Charlotte North and, Emily Harshuk and Emma Ward and Rachel, what's her name from Boston College? Rachel Clark. Yeah. All the fun people. So let's talk St. James Academy, because that was probably the initial reason that that we brought you in specifically for boys lacrosse, for the academy, specifically knowing that your role was also going to sort of be over top of the boys vertical here. But what were you attracted to the St. James for with regards to that, knowing you have coached at Spalding, coached at Loyola, sort of all that stuff?
Yeah, I think it's tough because there's so many different amazing academic and athletic institutions, probably in a 35-mile radius. I was lucky enough to coach in the MIAA for the past 6 or 7 years. So you see some of the best players, at their age in the world playing in such a competitive conference. And then you go to DeMatha and St. John's and what have you in the WCAC. But I think what's really appealing here is the ability to obviously come in and learn academically, and then as well as be coached, strength conditioning and things of that nature, as well as whatever your sport might be. Obviously, for me, it's lacrosse. To be able to be around these kids, for I guess a complete work day, but then also give them the ability to go home and spend time with their parents. I think a lot of us that played, um, high school lacrosse, if we remember, and now coaching, is you don't get home till 7:30 at night. And if you're a child and you have homework, you're eating quickly, you're showering, you're doing your homework, you're in bed, then you rinse and repeat. So there's not a tremendous amount of family time. So to me, the appeal is being able to come in, coach the kids as hard as I can, see them learn, see them grow, be around them for a full work day, and then send them back home to their families where they can really grow and mature that way as well, and just have that great family life.
I think what I'm so excited about with regards to the academy is this marrying of coach and teacher. Is like you said, being around them for like what is the entirety of their school day, sports specific training, and being able to see them grow very quickly, as we've seen in the kids who are currently in the St. James Academy for their sports specific. Seeing them grow very quickly is something that is what I get rewarded on, to be like, yes, I can't wait to come back the next day. I think that's going to be amazing. What are some of you and I talked a lot about playground lacrosse, which is how we grew up, going out with our friends.
The Sandlot.
The Sandlot, yeah. Maybe the girls called it the playground and the boys called it the Sandlot. I don't know. It's all the same thing. But what is the biggest thing that you want to bring forward to the academy with regards to the Sandlot?
I think in most sports, and certainly in lacrosse, the Sandlot is crucial, simply because we play so many games now. So if we all remember back when we were kids, there was youth lacrosse and that was it, or youth whatever sport you want to insert in there. And then you would go to your next sport that you were playing, and everybody played multiple sports, and we weren't kind of grounded to just one, particular sport. And so I think that to be able to kind of put some fun back into it, which obviously games are a tremendous amount of fun, but you have to practice and you have to be structured all the time to go compete in that game, where you can't go outside the box and do the fun stuff, the skill stuff, the practicing the different trick shots and things of that nature. So, obviously when we get this thing built, our goal would be to, establish a group of boys with the most skill, that are also smart, that also understand, a game presence and how you're supposed to act, on a game field. But really being able to think outside the box. I think that that's lacking now at a youth age.
100% agree with you. And just so we're both clear, as well as our listeners, we're building an academy for both boys and girls. Spencer will be leading the boys side of the academy. I'll be leading the girls side of the academy. Lacrosse IQ, thinking outside of the box. That's something that did it come natural to us? Like when our age demographic, are coaches having to focus on that more now, and teaching that, as opposed to us just learning stuff like that in the Sandlot?
I mean, outside seems to be a bad word for kids growing up nowadays. So, we were kicked out of our house at a young age and not allowed to come back in the house. And no matter what you were doing, whether it was kick the can or, capture the flag or whatever it was, or even playing a sport, there was all different movements that you didn't really recognize, that you were learning or that you were doing for a certain sport. And I think everything is so sport specific, and then even position specific nowadays, which it's not a bad thing because these kids are tremendous, but to put some of the flair back into it would be a lot of fun. I think we kind of lose our minds now when we watch the college and the pro kids, doing some of the things that they're able to do. And you kind of forget, that it was done so often that we weren't really that excited, like when Gary and Paul were doing all this stuff, it was exciting, but it was like, you'd see these things in your backyard and you'd practice these things. And I just don't know if it's being done at that level that it was being done back in the day, if that makes sense.
I got to watch a piece on Mikey Powell, from Syracuse.
The greatest highlight reel ever.
Greatest highlight reel ever. I mean, like, he did a front flip in a game
in the
like
dome.
in the dome. And not that I'm saying that I expect somebody, little Spence Ford, to go out and do a front flip this weekend for Maryland, but like that is, I feel like there's this fear barrier that's been put up, and some of these guys don't feel like they can have fun. Same thing with the girls. Now you're seeing the girls, I will say, Emma Ward, I don't know if you saw the behind the back shot that she had against Yale.
Terrific, yeah.
It's absolutely amazing that we're seeing this, but the fun piece, I think, is something that you and we've talked about a lot in the last month and a half to 2 months about how do we have that fun impact on these kids while their development trajectory is still going at the upward sort of.
Yeah, it's, when you look back, games like 3-by and street hockey and all these different things, that was just, it was just something that we did. Like, whether you wanted to or not, it was, you pick up a stick and you're playing. I think that I know that the kids have a blast doing it. I obviously have young kids that love doing it. I know Spencer growing up loved playing club lacrosse, and with his rec council that he played with, it's just that, there's so many more things for these young men and women to do now with video games and phones and stuff that we might not have had. So you were kind of forced to go outside, like it or not, and become more athletic and get better at different things and try different things. And then you can incorporate those things into whatever that, sport that you were going to chase growing older was. But it's, the fun stuff that you're seeing in the women's game now is mind blowing. I was actually really impressed with the women's PLL or the WL sixes. And I just thought that they were tremendous. I was like begging for a 2-point shot because I'm like, these girls have range, but their skill is just off the charts, and they just put a lot of fun back into the game. And when you see the young ladies in the stands, you see how excited they were. And then I actually have a neighbor that lives a couple houses down, that she's practicing those same things that she saw the very next day. She was actually on TV at the Sixes series, and then she's out in her backyard practicing those things. So it's really cool to see. We have a neighborhood where the kids are still outside doing a heck of a lot, and it's morning, noon, and night. But I think that you still have to be structured. You still have to go play games. You still have to be ready to win and compete for championships. But there is a way to put some of that flair back into it, which I'm excited about.
I think that was probably the best part of the WL Sixes championship series, was that you could tell that those women were having so much fun, whether they were sweating and they've just gotten scored on or they're the one doing the scoring. I mean, some of the combos in that game between Charlotte North and Izzy Skane, and the teamwork and just the like power that you could see. I mean, I definitely thought Charlotte was going to go for a 2-pointer because she can just create so much power with the stick. I would say even the boys, I definitely feel bad for the goalies on the boys' side and the girls' side too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of these girls, they're not shooting as hard as the boys, although I think they can. That's, again, my opinion.
They're bringing heat.
They're bringing
heat for sure.
You talk about fun and you talk about lacrosse IQ. Before we started this podcast, we were having a conversation about sort of like who we view are the best. And I thought you mentioned really interesting things about, like, if you had to look back on, for you personally, who were the best lacrosse players that have come prior to now, you said.
I mean, let's be honest. Gary and Paul were phenomenal. The Pals are probably still phenomenal. And there's a lot of great players, but my all-time favorite, because of how they played, I just think Patrick Spencer is just tremendous. I thought that, when you talk about dodging, he would be in a conversation because he was that good. When you talk about passing, he's probably in a league of his own. And then when you talk about scoring, I mean, he just had a knack for the cage, whether it was inside or outside, lefty, righty, it didn't matter. And I thought that his game was very, very similar to Connor Gill when he was at St. Paul's in Virginia. I just think that those two are almost like twins on the lacrosse field. They were working their tails off. They have a very lazy style, but they completed the game. There's not many guys that you look at and you say, okay, that guy's really good at dodging, passing, and scoring. right? Like you don't look at everybody that's great at lacrosse and say those
So
things.
you say lazy style, but
It was just effortless.
oh, effortless lazy,
Yeah.
not
But
like
it looked like if you looked at it and you weren't a lacrosse fan, you didn't know,
you'd be
you
like,
would
this
say,
is lazy.
"Oh my God, like he could probably work a little bit harder," or does it really come that easy to him? And it just, to me, it just seemed that way. Like I remember watching Connor play, and I think it was the 1999
Yeah.
Final Four, which I think was one of the last ones at Bird Stadium. And he had 5 goals in the first half as a freshman. And it was like, this is the Final Four, and this kid is putting University of Virginia, who's about to win their championship, on their
On
back.
their back.
And it's just, it's just crazy.
I also have a serious bias to Virginia because that's where I played lacrosse. So serious bias.
Yeah.
So like, love me some Connor Gill, love me some Wahoos. One thing I wanted to ask you about with regards to what you said to me specifically was that they both stand straight up, and that's not something you necessarily see in lacrosse. You're typically, as an attacker, specifically both crease guys.
Yeah. No. They were
Not.
They were everywhere. They could be all on ball, but
Okay.
mostly those guys were on ball.
Okay.
Yeah. Get it right.
You don't.
Steffi.
Sorry, I gotta get it right. But standing straight up is not something I would assume, even as a lacrosse person, that would be something that like makes them or differentiates them between some of the other guys.
Yeah, like, I mean, if you watch a lot of guys and they're leaning into people or whatever it may be, when they get their body in, their knees are bent, they're kind of low to the ground, and then they can kind of roll or do whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish in that move. But with Connor and Pat Spencer, they are straight up and down, like they're upright, and they can look over you, and they can still move their bodies in rolls and left and right and wherever they want to go. They just have great control of their bodies, and they are in a consistent triple threat. Like they can shoot the ball out of just leaning into you. They can feed it whichever way.
Maybe they're in the pocket.
Yeah. They're pretty good. I mean, they're obviously tremendous at the game and what they were able to do. And it was just a lot of fun to watch them.
When I was in my first career as a college coach, I was the camp director for Casey and Ryan Powell when they had the Powell Brothers Lacrosse Academy. And I can remember the first time I had met them because of just Virginia, Syracuse, and like the back and forth, and they were good and I was good. So it was just like we had met. The first time I really meet them, I'm flown to Syracuse to do the photo shoot in the Carrier Dome. And the two of them come in, and I don't really know what to expect. They've both got their sticks. They've got one ball. And they've got this game going on between the two of them. Who can throw the ball the highest and then catch it in like behind their back or like under and they literally did this for about an hour. And I was like, are we not going to take this photo shoot seriously? And that was the first time that I had really experienced like, holy crap, these guys just love to play.
Yeah, backyard.
And those are like my people, which I thought was super awesome. Do you have any specific women that you can remember who you would say would be the greatest other than me? From back in the day. I mean, I know I have my
You
people.
named a few of them. I thought Jen Adams was terrific. I just thought that she was so good. It was so much fun to watch her. And I actually coached the Towson women's team in 2000. I was their offensive coordinator. And so we got to see Maryland when Maryland was still like, I think you said that they won like 7 in a row or whatever.
7 in a row. I lost.
And I think
it was back to them.
I think it was part of that time that they had done it again. But watching these women play back then with all of the whistles, with the sticks weren't cool.
No, they
weren't fronted all
track it just with walls.
And just to see what they could do behind the back, shovels, like all different things. So she stands out the most. And then obviously because of where the game has gone, Charlotte North is tremendous. And I don't know how to say the one young lady's name, but she played for the New York team. And I think it was
Quickendall?
Harachuk.
Oh, Emily Harsha.
Is she has a tattoo on her arm, I think. Maybe. She was amazing.
Harsha.
And so, but watching these ladies play now, and the Boston College goalie, like what she did last year in the championship game with that foot save was just absolutely terrific. And so it's like, you look at the games, and back in the day, you could just separate the two in terms of like athlete and skill level, and now you can't. And that to me That's one of the coolest things, because now you can go out and you can be male, female, and have a catch and play 3-by and do all these things, and you're on the same
I think
level.
box is going to end up changing a lot of that
Oh, sure.
too. But I think the one thing I love most about Jen, because I got to guard her for 3 years, which was amazing.
How'd you do?
I lost.
Mm.
Yeah, I lost.
So you're
Actually,
not the
2 national champions. No, I was pretty good. I think Jen would say I was good too. Hopefully
She actually didn't.
she didn't say I was good.
No.
Yeah, dang it. Okay.
She was actually like, no. She was just okay.
She was just okay. I'm totally fine with that. The best part about Jen, or what I thought to be her best ability, was her patience. It actually had nothing to do with her skill work, although I thought her skill work was also amazing. She would literally put you in a position and you'd be like, and you would know it the minute you got put in it, and you're like, I can't recover from this. Because defensively, I think recovery and like mindset with regards to like how quick you can react and recover is really how you become the best defenders, is because the attackers are supposed to put you in that position. But Jen could literally put you in this position and you'd be like, you knew you were toast. You absolutely knew it. And then she was really the first women's player that I can remember who actually thought about placing the ball.
Yeah, she was ahead of her time in a lot of
completely ahead of her time. Now, all girls are thinking it. She was. I think the other couple of names that I would be, that I want to make sure that I mention on that list, clearly Kelly Amonte.
She was great.
Like playing with her, I got to, she picked me for her 3-on-3 team at US tryouts in 2004. And literally I was like, oh my gosh. Said to my sister, Christy, I'm like, Kelly just picked me for a 3-on-3 team. She's like, just wait. And I'm like, okay, so I'm over there chatting with her. I'm like, she wants me to be on her 3-on-3 team. We're trying out for the World Cup team. And literally she comes over to me. She's like, all right, so you play defense. And when you get the ball, I'm like, She's like, give it to me. And I was like, wow. She was like, I think that's when I started to like have the confidence to really speak up about like, she just said it. She just said it, which I thought was awesome. I think the one person that if I could go back to like the 90s and watch lacrosse again, it would be Laura Harmon from the University of Maryland. So I don't know if you remember that name.
I do, yeah.
We called her Sprouter. She's from Long Island, still coaches in Long Island right now. Absolute, like, she was the girl that just ran over you. Like, just ran over you. And just could literally, you were like, I'm playing boys lacrosse against her.
You speak of like when you think about names from the past, and when you like watching Sports Center and you look at the NBA and the NFL, and could that guy play in this era and could this guy play in that era? And there's a lot of that back and forth. It almost makes you wish, like you think about somebody like Jen Adams, like imagine her with the equipment in today's game and with her thinking ability, because she was thinking in today's age when she was playing back in the 90s. And then you look at guys like, Mikey Powell wasn't that long ago, but it's still been 10, 15 years. And Casey and Ryan have been even longer. And then the Gates have been 20, 30, like Petro and all these guys, like just to be able to see them go up against, imagine Petramala against CJ Kirst, who is today's greatest game. And then imagine, Casey Powell going in and he was a first team All-American midfielder and a first team All-American attackman and player of the year in both.
I mean, I used to love being like, we played in the Carrier Dome, a doubleheader, Virginia against Syracuse in 99. And that's the year that Virginia won the whole thing. And I remember sitting in the stands being like, I can't wait to see Ryan Curtis guard Casey Powell. Like that was what I was looking forward to out of that. Now I'm also like a total dork when it comes to like lacrosse crap like that. I absolutely love that. But like even nowadays, like a few years ago, I couldn't wait to watch Will Bowen guard the kid from, what was it, Sowers from Duke?
Yeah.
Like I couldn't wait to watch that. Same thing, when I look about the women's game now, like I can't wait to see Teresa Bragg from Florida. Who is she going to pull? Who is she going to guard when they play? Who are they playing now? I can't remember who they're playing. Who Florida's playing Duke. Like, who is she going to guard from Duke? I think she is by far the best defender in the college game right now. So what a perfect transition.
it would be cool to see like those people come into the game today, which just be, and you see a little bit of it with the pros now with the women and the men, but you don't see it completely of like, I want that one against that one or whatever.
I mean, we could talk about those types of like Petro guarding anybody right now when he was like in his prime. I mean, he was the reason I wanted to become a defender, just to like, because I was watching boys lacrosse.
Yeah.
Like thinking about playing girls lacrosse, because we talked about this earlier, just like that wasn't, you didn't go and watch girls lacrosse in the late 80s, early 90s. You went to watch boys lacrosse.
I mean, to be honest with you, it really, I had a sister that played it. It wasn't as fun. Like, it wasn't that you guys weren't good because you guys were all great, but the game itself with all the whistles and everything, I mean, it was just like, wow.
I mean, it's totally.
And now it's like, you want me to go watch a women's game? I'm in.
Well, let's transition and start, because we are in May. We got the women's quarterfinals. Actually, we are 11 minutes into the first game of Northwestern versus Penn. Clearly, we have no idea what's going on. But when you think about the women's bracket, we got a lot of interesting things happening with that. Clearly, North Carolina, Boston College, and Northwestern are all back. And now we have, Florida or Duke is going to end up in the quarterfinals, because Virginia, who, although wasn't technically the top seed in that portion of the bracket, it was Florida. Virginia was who everybody thought was going to come out of that bracket, Virginia or Stanford. And then you have, North Carolina playing Princeton, Boston College playing Yale, who upset Syracuse, who, on the boys and the girls side, specifically talking girls now, is going to always be in the conversation. From what you've seen of girls lacrosse so far this season at the collegiate level, where does your mind go with regards to North Carolina, Princeton, Boston, Yale?
It's easy. It's BC, Carolina, couple steps, then Northwestern, then everyone else.
I know.
So it's, it's going to be.
What have you seen out of Carolina and BC that creates that gap?
I think that, one, when you think of Boston College, when you have a goalie that's that good, is you have a chance to win. So, they score when they need to. They do play pretty good defense. They've given Carolina probably their two best games this season, which happen to be their two losses. But I think Acacia does a great job with BC. And, although they haven't won all of them, but if this is their 7th or 8th in a row to go to the championship, if they're lucky enough to get there, like, that's just absolutely incredible and crazy at the same time. And then looking at Carolina, I just love that the pace that they play and how athletic they are. And they're also equally as good in the cage. But I don't know who their draw person is, but she wins the draw. I mean, I think in that BC game, I think that she really dominated, and that makes the difference, especially if you're up by 1 or 2. You're not coming back, even with the shot clock.
That's actually, now clearly we're assuming that North Carolina gets through Princeton and Boston College gets through Yale.
Yeah.
That specific aspect of the game, I'm interested to see how Acacia and her staff changes the draw specifically for that game. That's going to be really interesting to me. I think the difference that I see in Carolina, which we were talking about earlier, is that the number of girls that can actually score on that team is like, they have like 8 to 10 girls that have heavy stats scoring.
Don't they have like 3 up for the tour ton?
Yeah, it's disgusting.
One of which is a freshman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
the Humphrey sisters are just
they're
like
really
out of this world. And I love what they're able to do. I think the difference in North Carolina too, what I've loved what Jenny Levy has done is that when a certain team tries to take out and block out one of their specific players, they literally just pull them over to the sideline and say, play 6-on-6.
Well, yeah.
Or play, at one point they were playing 5-on-5 against Boston College. And I was like,
and then
that shows that they're that comfortable with the other girls doing the majority of their scoring.
And their pace of play. Like, I don't have all of their stats in front of me, but their pace of play is unbelievable.
It's like I'm down.
Just speaking of her, Kate Levy.
Yeah. Oh.
Scored that goal going down. I mean, it's an amazing play for a freshman. She gets a She gets a turnover. She gets it up off the ground. She actually outruns everybody and scores with her offhand.
Outruns everybody. She put like 10 to 20 yards worth of distance between her and whoever they were playing against in that. I think that was Boston College in the ACC championships.
Yeah.
And like 20 yards over a 60-yard span, she put 20 yards.
And that ended up being the game winner.
Yeah.
That goal ended up being the game winner. They ended up winning by 2, but that was the game winner, that play. I mean, that's just crazy. So they can beat you at all different angles and all different ways. And they do get good goalie play. They're very good on the defensive end. Like they do give up goals, but they'll get stops when needed. And then their pace of play from D to O is just unbelievable. And when you have those skilled guys, it's good luck.
I do also think, though, that knowing Kelly Amonte's lacrosse brain, she can figure out a way.
Oh, she could coach her way, and her kids can play their way into the championship game.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's those three. So I think that BC's going to have to play, in my opinion, Northwestern, right, to get to the championship. So one of those, if we were betting people, is going to be playing Carolina, and then that's going to be a heck of a game.
I do think the biggest keys for that will be draw control. Is your goalie hot in that game? And
is there a way to slow the pace down?
Well, and I think to transition over to boys, the boys is knowing the game scenario and knowing, what to do and what not to do. And I'll make the transition there because we've talked a lot in the past few days about the Syracuse-Harvard game.
Yeah, it was a shocker.
On the boys' side. Shocker, one, because I love Syracuse. I'll always love Syracuse lacrosse. But I am about the underdog. And in that scenario, the underdog was prevailing for 80% of the time. I mean, it wasn't until maybe 5 minutes into the fourth quarter that you really started to say, hey, and my coach brain went, uh-oh, like momentum is starting to shift. And then Harvard gets that 2-minute non-releasable locked in. And
but when you look at it too, is that, the kid Mullins from Syracuse, the faceoff guy, I mean, he was, what was the score was 11-5 at one point. I think it was 8-2 at half. So there was already 12 faceoffs in the first half, and he dominating possession. With the shot clock, they say, it may not help, but when you're winning like 80 some percent of your faceoffs, and then you're doing it when you're on that run, I mean, that's crucial. Obviously, anytime you get a penalty locked in and you have a faceoff guy that's hot and you have an offense that can play like Syracuse can when they're on, you're going to be in trouble. And so it's unfortunate, and I'm sure that they didn't want to foul. And some of these head hits, are tough for these officials to call. But I think that they got it right. I mean, at the end of the day, like, they got their fouls right.
Oh, 100%. I think you could go back probably to a clip of Jake Burns' face being like...
Jerry Burns, sorry.
My bad. Wasn't the old owner of the MLL Jake somebody?
That was Jake Steinfeld.
Okay, so I'm in the same arena, maybe.
Yeah.
Jerry Burns' face, and it's like I want to relate it to when you're in a situation and they call a weather delay in a game, and you go out for 30 minutes and you come back. One of two things is going to happen: the team that was winning or had the momentum is either going to keep it or they're not.
Right.
And I think this is a similar scenario. They get this penalty locked in. Either momentum's going to stay with them or not. And you saw Spallina 2 times hit Deere cross crease for the same goal. And I mean, I can't say that I knew that Syracuse was going to come back and win that game, but my gut feeling was like, here comes Syracuse.
Yeah, I mean, they've always, that's one thing that hasn't changed, is that Syracuse has the ability to score. They don't really get rattled too easily. Their defense plays, they may not be considered the best defense in the country, but when they have to turn it on, they turn it on. So, I mean, they give up 4 goals in the second half, after being down 8-2. So that's a really, really good defensive plan and scheme and strategy. And the kids went out and kind of produced. But the more chances you give Syracuse to score, they're just that good. I mean, when you look at that offensive production from all of them, you have Hild, Spallina, Trey Deer's now back in there putting up numbers. Michael Leo. I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on and on. And one of the kids that just is tremendous is the English kid, number 15. He is as good as anybody. I think the greatest comparison for him would be to Matt Abbott, who also played at Syracuse, although Matty was a lefty and Sam is a righty. The way that they can do everything really good. They can play man down. They can be on the wing. They get off the ball off the ground. They can push in transition. They can play on your first midfield line. If you need them on EMO, they can do that as well. Like
so they're not
everything.
position specific. They're sort of like like rogue, whereas I feel like all of us when we played, we were like these rogue athletes. We could really do it all. And then we've gotten very position specific.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a new aspect that's coming back. Okay, let's talk Maryland Georgetown men. Go.
Maryland, Georgetown, man, that's going to be a good one. Two extremely well-coached teams. Maryland has been in a position this year where they've played their best lacrosse against the country's best teams.
Oh, that's okay.
If a team had been ranked in the top 3 and you're playing Maryland, then you're going to be no longer ranked in the top 3. That's how the season went for them this year. And they just put it together, they say all the time, if you give, Coach Tills and his staff a week to prepare, they're as good as anybody. But on the flip side, when you look at the Georgetown staff, Coach Warren coaches with great emotion. He's got great strategy and he's got great discipline in his guys. He's got a really good goalie playing for him that is as good in the cage as he is out of the cage. And they have a pretty good defensive scheme, that they're playing. They're tough. They're physical. They're together. And they're getting a lot out of some younger guys this year. So I think it's going to be a heck of a game. I'm excited it's in Annapolis.
Okay, Richmond.
I'm rooting for Maryland.
You're rooting for Little Spence. Go, Little Spence. Why are you rooting for Maryland? You got to tell everybody if they don't know, because what happens if they don't know?
Because Michael Phipps is one of my favorite people.
Oh.
Not because Little Spence plays.
Okay. Spencer Ford Jr. Is he a junior?
Yeah.
Okay. Is a freshman at Maryland right now. Everybody.
Yeah. A couple of my guys, him, Pete Lake, guys that I've coached with the 24 Crabs team are on the team. And it's been a heck of a lot of fun to watch. Although Spencer's redshirting, Pete's getting some burn now and he's doing really well. And it's just, they are a really, really great team with an emphasis on team. They care about one another. They play hard for one another. They don't care who scores. They don't care who defends the number 1 compared to the number 6. And I think that's why they've had such great success. And they believe in their plan.
I think that's one. If there was one thing I can say about John Tillman is like top down, like he has them prepared for almost every scenario.
Oh, without a doubt.
Even a lot of scenarios that would never happen.
They are as dialed in as they can be.
Yeah. So Cornell, Richmond, though. So Richmond first time making it to quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, I think Shamati's got them playing really good lacrosse. They're very, very good defensively. They're getting good goalie play. Their face-off guy, is tremendous when he needs to be. He'll get them big face-offs. I don't know if a lot of people remember, but it took Cornell every bit of their first game to beat Richmond, I think, by 1. I think that the end score was a 1-goal game. So I'm definitely thinking that Cornell, because of how good their offense is, their defense does the right things. They win faceoffs. That offense is just so potent with Goldstein and Kirst. And then obviously Kelleher and add the rest of them in Long. And I could keep going on and on and on. But Richmond is not somebody to sleep on. I don't think Cornell is. I think that maybe they caught him at a time where, maybe they were looking past them or whatever. I don't think we're going to see that this game.
How much of the game do you think can Kirst play a part in? All of it? They've done a big thing of talking
How much can he play a part? Like
how much do you think he can, like the outcome?
Well, he has the ability to control every bit of the outcome. And then if he doesn't, there's 4 other guys on that offense that can put up 6, 7, 8 points a game each. They have one of the best middies in the Kelleher kid, who's I think like 9 feet tall and 300 pounds of muscle. And he just goes downhill. And then you have Goldstein, who I think is probably the best passer in the game right now. Wow. He is just tremendous. And he's just so good in and around the crease. Long plays really well with CJ Kurse. And then, like, I think the best part about them is that if you shut CJ or try to, he's okay with it because he's such a good team guy. He's not okay with getting shut. He still plays within the offense, whereas a lot of guys that get shut that are top-notch players, they'll chase the ball. They'll, waste time trying to get the ball on their stick, and then you can't really flow as an offense. He just fits right in, knowing that his other 4 or 5 guys are going to get the job done.
That's awesome.
And then that forces the opponent to then say, okay, we just shut him off and it's working there, but we just gave up 10 goals to these other guys. So we've got to change. And now next thing you know, CJ's got 5. So I think that they control it together. I think they're one of the best offenses that we've seen in a long time, and how they share it and how important each player is. Obviously, CJ's the best in the country, and it's hands down. But, some of those other guys are pretty darn important, and they're pretty darn good at their sport.
So to relate Cornell and Notre Dame, we've got the youngest brother of the Kirst family and the Kavanaugh families graduating this year, right? We won't have any Kirsts or Kavanaughs in Division I lacrosse next year.
Well, wait, Kirst's brother is a goalie at Rutgers.
Oh, there's another one?
Yeah, I think there's one more. He's a goalie at Rutgers. And I don't think that there's another Cav. I think that they are. I think that they're done.
Okay, so let's shift over to Notre Dame, Penn State.
Okay.
First thing I want to say is I'm upset, and I'm probably not right, but I'm just upset that Notre Dame and Ohio State, that game was not in the quarterfinals. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know. I love Ohio State. I wanted them to win. I wanted there to be new blood in men's lacrosse.
That's why they play the games.
No.
It is what it is.
I know.
It's the greatest phrase of all time. It is what it is.
Wanted Ohio State to be in this position.
I thought Ohio State had a tremendous year. It was definitely a good game. Notre Dame put it together when they needed to. I think this game is going to be really cool. Number one, because it's in Annapolis and we get to watch it live. And then number two is, there's a lot of people that you can talk about on the defensive ends of both teams. Like both Penn State and Notre Dame both play very good defense. But I think that the faceoff X, the kid Lynch from Notre Dame, was highly touted, and he's one of the top guys in the country. Well, there's a freshman that went to the Severn School named Reed Gills, who's playing for Penn State, and he's setting record after record in like the last 3 games. I think he set the Big Ten tournament faceoff win record. He just played in last week's game, and I think he won like another 18 of like 21 faceoffs or whatever it is. And if he gets enough, this kid's a game changer, because he's just going to give you possession after possession after possession. And the beauty is that he figures it out in all different ways. Like he'll pop you forward, he'll pull you back, he gets rid of the ball out of his stick. He's not a liability with it. Like, he does some really cool things. So I think that the face-off battle is going to be pretty cool to see.
I love that. And last but not least, Syracuse-Princeton, which I feel like this goes back to like the Powell era, the Jesse Hubbard. Like, this is going to be, in my opinion.
There's no comparison. I know that Syracuse used to play Princeton, but when you think about Hubbard, Massey, and Hess, like, that's the greatest of all time.
Oh, I know. No, I'm just saying, like
let's not go.
I'm not going to. No, first of all, I think that that's the best of all time. I think that that's
Hands
the
down.
best of all the time, other than Doug Knight, Drew McKnight, and whoever's on the third, and Michael Watson.
How would you forget Michael?
Sometimes you just forget.
Yeah,
you know me. I talk so.
He was the guy.
I talk so quickly.
And it wasn't Drew. It was Timmy Whiteley.
That's right. Sorry, Drew was the next year. Yeah, sorry. That's right.
I think it's going to be, it has the ability to be high scoring. I do think that both defenses can play at a very high level. I think Billy Dwan is spectacular at Syracuse.
Yeah.
I love his game. He's a coach's son. Great kid. Great off the ground. Great leader. And again, back to what I said before, is that they don't really panic. Like, oh, we've given up 13 goals. Well, we just can't get up. We can't give up 15.
Yeah.
And then they shut you down, so you can't get those next 2. And I think Billy's the leader in that. I think that their goalie is playing at a very high level, and then they have the ability to push it out. So I think that they can cover Princeton's guys. They do have some really talented offensive players in Coulter Mackesy and Nate Kabiri, and there was a kid that came out of Georgetown Prep, and of course I'm blanking on his name. But they're both equally good, and they can score in bunches. So I would say probably somewhere in the teens. You're going to see
Oh, what?
probably a 2 or 3 goal game.
Okay. That's going to be really interesting. I'm just,
The faceoff guy at Syracuse, Mullins,
yeah.
has been terrific. So if he can get hot, I do know that Syracuse is pretty good as well, but Mullins has been top notch. If he can get hot, I do think that goalie play and faceoff wins can secure, a berth to the Final Four for Syracuse.
Okay. Last thing that I think is really interesting. We've talked about Dwan. We've talked about Splina. We've talked about Kate Levy. We've got now this huge influx of children, of parents who are from our era,
Aging us again.
aging us again. Sorry, who are these like big time impact players? Do you find that to be like interesting? Is not the word, but like I do find it to be really fun right now that we have these kids coming back and sort of making the impact that their parents made. Anything interesting about that for you that you see?
I mean, I have one that is highly ranked and as a son, and he's done great things. I think that in our initial talk about the Sandlot is that one of the things that all of these kids have in common, well, they're now young adults, but all of what they have in common is that they've been around the game for so long at such a high level. They're probably the smartest players on their team. They're probably as skilled as anybody on the team, right? And they understand the game, going back to smarts, they understand the game better than most on their team. And I think that that's just a tribute to not us as parents and coaches, is that us bringing them so that they can see this next generation
So that's what
of legendary
it's like
players.
they're almost around that culture, that like this winning culture, I guess is the thought process. I know that you take your kids, your younger boys with you a lot this past season to Loyola to be around that culture. I've tried to do that with my kids as well, so they understand.
Well, think about this, not to interrupt you, but Joey Splina spent his entire young childhood in the New York Lizards locker.
Yes.
Do I need to name some of the players that were in that locker? Okay.
Um,
Because they were Paul Rabel, Rob Pannell.
Yeah.
That's 2 of them.
Yeah.
They were tremendous. And some of the things, and the beauty is the way that these superstars treat these kids is like their own. My son was lucky enough to be in a locker room with the Chesapeake Bayhawks with Casey Powell and Drew Westervelt and Ben Hunt and Nicky Polanco and Brian Splina and so on and so forth. And then when we went to Atlanta, he's in a locker room with Mark Matthews, Randy Stotts, Brian Cole. I mean, these guys have been next to, have broke bread with, have picked the brains of, have had catches with the greatest players that we know in all different generations. And so it's been really, really cool. And then obviously on the women's side, you think about the people that have come out of Carolina. Like, I mean, Kate Levy, since the time she was little, has been around these people. So it's just, it's a tribute to what those players have done. I always talk to like Randy Stotts and Brian Cole, and I thank them for how great they were to my kid and my kids. And now with Jackson and Huntley, and being involved with the Carolina Chaos again, is that they'll be able to be around the greatest players in the world, which you have no choice. If you like the game, you're going to love it after you meet these guys because they're just special people.
And that's where I wish that had been part of my, how I grew up, being around the Sherry Greers and the Kelly Mates and like them. The first experience I had with my daughter was the WLL Champ Series here. And she's like, so we can just like walk on the field when they're practicing? And I was like, let's just go meet Charlotte. Let's just go meet Izzy. And she's like, her brain was like, I mean, Alexa, like,
Yeah.
Like, so she was just like, I get to be around them. And I'm like, you get to talk to them. You get to interact with them. Like, she's like, should I call them by their first name? I'm like, what else would you call? Like, so I just have seeing it through her eyes now. I'm like, I can't wait. This is part of me wants lacrosse to stay in this era, although I love what the PLL and the WLL are doing. But part of me wants lacrosse to stay in this like little space to then be like, okay, like give these kids this outlet that, we all experienced in some level, but not as great as the level
They're
is now.
these people are great. Just a quick story because we are here at the St. James, but my first time here was with the first Sixes championship, the PLL Sixes, and I was coaching with the Atlas with Stephen Brooks. And Jackson, when he was a baby, that's when I was with the Atlanta Blaze. So Jax was born in 2017 and or 2016, one of those days, one of those years. Anyhow, he's supposed to be my favorite. But
So we do have
when
favorites.
he was a newborn, when he was first born, I was with the Blaze, and so he was young and like around 2-3 years old, but he doesn't like he remembers a little bit. But our first experience with the PLL was with the Sixes, and I was with the Atlas, and I have a picture of him and Romar Dennis, and I mean Romar, no kidding, is like 8 feet tall, right? And so Jax is on a chair, and Romar's standing up, and he's still like super tall, but like Jax cried after the Sixes series, after it was all done, after we had lost in the championship. It was a great game. We lost by a goal, but he cried because he didn't want to leave the guys. He didn't care about the game.
Oh, okay.
He just cared about, he did because he knew it was over, and he just cared about not being able to see the guys anymore. And now when they see him still, they're like, "What's up, Beast?" You know, they still remember, and they don't have to do that.
Yeah, they don't have.
I just think that the lacrosse men and women at that level are such special people for how they treat the young
Yeah,
the next
the
generation.
next generation. Yeah.
I just think that it's cool, and so hopefully now these kids in college, my kid, you know, moving on will be the same way, and just remember the life lessons that they learned being in the locker room.
Well, I mean, that's where it all comes down to. I think for me specifically, like the life lessons that lacrosse has given me just over my playing career, over my coaching career, over just my career in general, my life, like my best friends are all lacrosse players and the people that I hang out with now. So I think it
Like
really
I was a soccer guy growing up.
Well, I was going to bring that up earlier because look, I was going to
I love
when we were
soccer.
talking about Sandlot and you were saying some of those comments, like lacrosse was not your first priority.
No, I didn't. I didn't want to play lacrosse moving forward. I was a soccer guy. I used to miss high school games to go to soccer tournaments. And then when it came time with scholarships, soccer wasn't huge here in this area. You know, it's bigger in different states. And, you know, I had a few different offers. And when Towson came, Towson was like, you can get right in with your scores and your terrible grades. You can come in. And it was heavy on lacrosse with the ability to play soccer. Well, I chose lacrosse for whatever reason. Don't ask me why. But looking back on it now, like it was such a great choice not to continue on with soccer because I became a pro in lacrosse. I've played and coached in pro. I've been an All-American. I've done all this stuff. I've met some of the greatest people in the world that I don't know if the same thing would have happened in soccer. Like I wouldn't have gone pro, you know, like could you have been an All-American? Yeah, maybe. Right. Could you have competed for a championship somewhere down the road? But like the MLS wasn't going to be taking us like they were going, you know what I mean? Like, no. And so it's one of those things where like
wearing the mini shin guards.
The fact that I did that and made that transition and really fell in love with the game. It wasn't until I redshirted in college that I really fell in love with lacrosse. Like I wanted to go be great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's later. That's than the
yeah. I was
person.
legal.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think this is going to wrap up our first ever episode of The Pocket. Hopefully everybody enjoys like the banter that we have and the fact that I think we know a lot. Whether we actually know a lot or not is...
I think one of us does.
Oh,
Go
definitely
Terps.
me. And then that's a wrap.
Yeah.